Hello, it's David Parrish, and welcome to the World Missions and Evangelism video blog. It's been a while since I've been on here. Been doing a lot of traveling. A lot of amazing things have been happening in Honduras and Latin America, and I've been doing some training in Latin America and some other trips. And so because I've been away from the office and just kind of snowed with wonderful opportunities, we haven't been on the video blog for a while. But I wanted to come back and share with you some exciting things that we believe the Lord is bringing to us as a focus. I want to begin today in this video blog what's going to be probably a few video blogs. I don't know how many, and hopefully I can share these without them being very, very, very long. I want to talk to you. I want to begin to talk to you about something today that is just literally burning in my spirit, and some things that we've begun to share with other people, and they've begun to share with us about the future of what God is wanting to do on planet Earth. And so today, I want to direct your attention to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 24. Matthew, chapter 24. And I want to just suggest something for you to think about today. I want to plant a seed to begin today. And with this seed that I want to plant, I hope that you'll make this a matter of prayer and a matter of passion in your life. Matthew chapter 24 is known as the Olivet Discourse. Jesus, just days before his crucifixion, in that final week, this was after Palm Sunday, and it was during the week Jesus was going into Jerusalem, and he was leaving the temple for the last time. He had been reaching out to the Jewish leaders and the people there, and speaking plainly to them. And the Bible says that they were rejecting him as Messiah. So as he walked out, he looked at the buildings around him, and he said to his disciples, "You see these buildings around here? Not one stone will be left on the other." And the disciples were just shocked at that, and they said, "When will these things be?" And in other words, when will the temple be torn down? And what will be the sign of your coming? Now, when they asked him, what is the sign of your coming, they meant, what they were saying is, when will you come to Jerusalem as king? When will you demonstrate that you are king? When will you come to Jerusalem as king? And of course, we know that that's going to happen at his second coming when he comes again. They didn't think of it as a second coming. They didn't even know he was going. They didn't know he was going to be crucified in a few days. But that's what it relates to as us. And it says, so what is the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? And so Jesus sat down on the Mount of Olives with his disciples, and he began to speak to them. And you can read everything that he said in Matthew 24 and 25. But I want to focus on one aspect of what he said. Now, just to show you that he's talking about the second coming of Christ, I want you to notice what he begins to say in verse 29. He says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he'll send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they'll gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So I want you to see that he's talking about the very end, the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now let's go on and read just a little bit more. We skip down to verse 34 and understand that in this chapter, and I'm not taking the time to read all of it, I hope that you'll read it on your own, but in this chapter, he is laying out signs and things that you'll know are going to happen before the end. But then in verse 34, he says this, assuredly I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. Let me read that again. And this is a verse that has just befuzzled Bible scholars, and there have been all kinds of different explanations. What is a generation? Does it mean what is it talking about? I've read every view on this that there probably is. But listen to what Jesus said. He said, "Assuredly I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place." And make no mistake, this is true, because the next verse says, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away." Now, I want you to understand that when it comes to talking about when is Jesus going to come back, when is the end going to be, when it comes to all those kinds of discussions, I know the internet is full of all kinds of teachings and ideas. Some of them may be accurate, some may be inaccurate. I'm not aiming at that. And one thing I want you to know, the very next verse says, "But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only." So I want to say this right now, and I want everybody that hears this hear it loud and clear. No one other than the Father knows the day and the hour that Jesus is coming back. So I won't be predicting anything about that on this video or any future videos. Because the Father knows, and it's going to happen when the Father knows, and it's not going to happen any other time. So we understand that. But that being said, again, verse 34, "Assuredly I say to you, this generation will not pass away till all these things take place." Now, again, that verse has just gripped people for years. And what does it mean? I mean, what does it mean? Well, here's what I believe it means. And I've studied this and thought of this, but as time has gone on, and especially as I've gotten involved in disciple-making movements around the world, this is what I've come to believe. I believe that when it says this generation will not pass away till all these things take place, I believe that what he is absolutely saying is that there will be a generation. There will be a generation on earth. There will be a time period on earth during which all these things, not some of these things, but all these things will come to a head in one generation. And that will be the final generation. So the generation he's talking about, I believe, is the final generation. Now, the thing about it is, no one knows when that generation is. It wasn't the generation Jesus was living in. It wasn't the generation of those guys. But it was the generation, listen to it again. This generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. So the generation where it all happens. You see, in this chapter it talks about the beginning of sorrows, but that wasn't the end. In this chapter it talks about earthquakes. There have always been earthquakes, but we believe that earthquakes are getting worse today. But just because there's an earthquake doesn't mean wars and rumors of wars and nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom, all these things, there have been times throughout history where all of these, but when all of these things, is there any one thing that has not happened in any generation from that time up until this time? I want to declare there's only one thing that has not yet happened in this chapter that has not happened in any generation yet. And it is in verse 14. Matthew 24:14 says, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come." But, there's people teach whole series about earthquakes and all this stuff, but the one verse that it says, the one thing that is the final sign, and then, right then, the end will come. The final sign is this: the gospel of the kingdom preached in all the world. That means every geographic location where there are people. For a witness to all nations, and the word nations is ethne, and that means people groups. And that connects directly with what Jesus told us in the Great Commission, Matthew 28:18-20, where he said, "Go make disciples of all nations, of all ethne, of all people groups." And that again connects to Revelation chapter 7, where the Bible says that before the throne there will be a great multitude that no one can number of all nations and tribes and tongues and peoples. And so what am I saying to you? I'm saying this. The one final sign of the end, which will be the last sign, and then the end will come, Jesus said. Then the end will come. Then I will come. Then it will all wrap up. Then it will be finished. It's not how many earthquakes there are, and it's not how many wars there are, and it's not even what's happening in the Middle East, although all of that is a part. Those are parts of the puzzle, but the last generation is not when parts come together. The last generation, verse 34, is when it all happens, and the only part of all that has not happened is this gospel of the kingdom has not yet reached all people groups. Now, this is the thought I leave you with today. There'll be a generation that will finish this work. The question is, could this generation be that generation? Can the generation that is alive today on earth, those of you that are hearing my voice now, can you be the one? Can this be the generation that completes it, that sees the gospel, that sees disciples made of all people groups? And my answer to that is, it can be. It should be. And for the eternal sake of everybody living today, it must be. And so we're going to talk about, for a few sessions on our video blog, can this be the final generation? And if so, how can you and I be a part of it? And what can you and I do? And by the way, this isn't going to be a fundraising appeal. I'm not going to say, so pray for me and send me money. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to talk about how you, in your life and your ministry, can be a part of bringing this generation to fruition in our day. I'm sure not going to stop you from praying for me and sending money to the mission project, but I'm telling you, that's not what this is going to be about. This isn't a fundraising appeal. This is an appeal to our spirit from God, I believe, to see a goal ahead of us that is within reach and dedicate the rest of our lives to it. This generation can be that generation. God bless you. We're going to talk more about this next time. I'm glad you watched. Have a wonderful day.